Now I want to bring Brian Clifton up. Brian is a new PhD poetry student here, and he's going to do the official introduction for Ruth Ellen.
Hello, everyone. Like Corey said, I'm Brian. I'm a first-year PhD student for poetry. I'm an instructor for some of you. And it's my pleasure to introduce Ruth Ellen Kocher. She is the author of 7 books and has won such awards as the Dorset Prize, the Green Rose Prize, the Naomi Long Magic Poetry Award, the Penn Open Book Award. Her poems have been translated into many languages, including Persian, which I think is really cool, and they have found homes in several anthologies. She's been granted awards and fellowships from Yaddo, the Kawe Khanum Foundation, and the Bucknell Seminar for Younger Poets. And while she's writing all this wonderful poetry, she also serves as a contributing editor for Poets and Writers. She is also a professor of English at the University of Colorado Boulder, where she serves as the Associate Dean of the Arts and Humanities. Truly, Ruth Ellen Kocher is busy doing a ton of fantastic and necessary work in terms of poetry, education, art, and research. So we're really lucky that she's here to share some of that with us. Tonight, she's here to read some of her poems from her newest collection, Third Voice, which, as Corey said, was a finalist for our Rilke Prize. And Third Voice is a book-length sequence that presents a how-to guide to stage minstrel shows as a means to contemplate the complicated ways we perform race and gender out in the world and also inside our own heads. The poems conceptually and playfully interrogate how identity is performed genuinely and ironically, and how that affects our ideas of ourselves and other selves. For instance, it is stated early in the book, in the poem, Sentimental Song, Beneath the Sound Outside, a child crying, Lacey N. Iga considers last but most the bird. This is a quote from one of the poems. The parody of parades on Lacey's bookshelf. As a parody, Lacey might be, but the window in an office every parody has, in every window of every day. Lacey posits what is missing now makes me. We see in this passage, and others like it, how the performance of identity is fraught with questions of authenticity, parody, intention, and if any of it matters to how the performance is understood by others. Third Voice asks the question if there can be an authentic performance of a marginalized identity, or if these types of performances are informed by dominating cultures and so must conform or subvert them. Near the end of the book, Olio 7 implores the reader to think twice, grow up, step up, and don't miss it. While I don't know if the questions of performance can be answered, I do know that the poems in Third Voice help show how these questions can impact a psyche in both a cerebral and visceral way. To say the poems in this book are rangy is an understatement. They swerve from digital underground sex packets to Immanuel Kant's observations on the feelings of the beautiful and sublime, from stump speeches to catalogs, from playful blocks of text to the cruel silence of white space, from an exterior world to an interior persona, and then into that interior persona's interior headspace. Third Voice weaves together all of these things and more with a sonically driven lyricism that is dense and utterly awe-inspiring. If Sun Ra was right, that space is the place, then Third Voice is certainly the book. Please help me welcome Ruth Ellen Kocher.
I guess I have to move the microphone. It's okay. But you are a little taller than me. I think that'll do. Yeah, we're good. Thank you so much, Brian. Very sweet, lovely. Thank you, Corey and Bruce and John and everyone who joined us for dinner tonight. You have just been the most wonderful hosts. And I would like to say that in honor of your hospitality, I wore your school colors. But it's serendipitous. I cannot tell a lie. So it's serendipitous. But I am reading just from Third Voice tonight. That's the book I have. If you have another book with you and you want me to read something, just holler out later and hand me your book and I'll do that. I went to this great poetry reading once with the poet Tim Siebels. It was in a large auditorium and it was like a concert. It was like a rock concert. He's reading, and every time he'd read a poem, people would start whooping. Whoa! Wah! And then they started calling out titles and like requests, holding up lighters, like Lucy Alert Skinner. And I remember at one point he said, "Oh no, I don't have that book with me." And then someone ran from the back of the auditorium with the book and handed it to him on stage. So I will never assemble such a crowd, but I'm happy to accommodate if you need it. This book is a strange meandering, and I know that when you enter it, that it's easy enough to get lost, but my hope for this work is that it's okay to be lost in it, because it's okay to be within the book. And you don't always have to understand exactly why I'm saying Heidegger at this particular instant. We talked about Heidegger at dinner a little bit. But there's an experience that the speaker here evokes that I want the reader to share. So mostly I want you to just really enjoy this as a song and not even worry so much about the implications or the consequence of what I'm saying. Can you let go? Can you just let it happen? Yeah? I mean, everyone listened to Drake for the first time. You had to take a chance. You had to say, all right, I'm willing to see if this can work. So, I'm going to read two poems out of order that I usually don't read in this book. To just explain the framing, early in the front piece, I have a quote from Gertrude Stein's The Autobiography of Alice B. Toklas. I did a PhD in 20th century literature with an emphasis in modernism and the Black Renaissance. And so, as you can imagine, Gertrude Stein, who was one of the subjects of my dissertation, has always been this anomaly, this aporia that I have not been able to solve. The quote reads, "Carl Van Vechten sent us quantities of Negroes. Besides, there were the Negroes of our neighbor, Mrs. Reagan, who had brought Josephine Baker to Paris. Carl sent us Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson interested Gertrude Stein. He knew American values and American life as only one in it, but not of it, could know them. And yet, as soon as any other person came into the room, he became definitely a Negro. Gertrude Stein did not like hearing him sing spirituals. They do not belong to you any more than anything else, so why claim them?" she said. He did not answer. And so, because this book, in some ways, is a little bit about giving voice where previously there had been none, I wrote a response on behalf of Paul Robeson to Gertrude Stein, writing from behind the mask of Alice B. Toklas. Skit Paul Robeson on Stein after. She's interesting enough to play herself over and over again in indie films that aim to strike the pose of that generation of interest at the moment, if the profile necessitates a tortured sort of soul, though now she is thin in her good looks, her beard grows in dark and faint, balancing the delicacy of her face, the exception a naturally furrowed brow against an obvious masculinity. I wanted Paul Robeson to have some voice other than the quote-unquote Negro speaking spirituals in the canon. So I gave him one. Skid, the sound of another woman's heart pounding. Lacey opens her eyes and realizes she's the dream another woman dreams. The woman can sleep, but Lacey cannot. The next day seems uninterested. Lacey stands next to it the way you stand next to someone at a bus stop, looking around, smiling, close-lipped. What to do, she says, wandering inside the head of a woman. It doesn't matter who she is. There is a man wearing a green sweater. The woman dreams of him. The green sweater walks away and takes him too. Lacey knows they are not the same dream. He is long-haired. His tattoos decide to stay in the room. Tomorrow saddles up. The morning turns away and becomes its own burden. I can't sleep, Lacey says to the lamp, which says nothing. This poem introduces Lacey as a conscious, kind of sentient notion of self that's actually really a voice that's living inside of a woman who is not as characteristic, not as detailed, not as named. Throughout the book, she is really just the woman. And so this kind of barrier of the internal and the external starts just from this beginning. 11. When she is awake. Red velvet cake is my favorite cake, the woman thinks, while she waits for the mail. Her robe doesn't fit, but it is the robe she wore all night in her bed. Some kind of purple, some kind of cloth, some scent of herself over a scent of detergent. Mostly, she thinks this is funny. All night in her bed, she imagined there was a man in a green sweater. She imagined his hair was locked, his breath was bad. She imagined he snored and she could not sleep. She finds the man funny, too, as dark things make you feel a dark lift inside you. To say dream is a risk and means to be a part of something. I'm never part of, she thinks. I am bored with becoming something. I am bored with becoming something terse, reaching toward, away from, not enough. The woman watches late-night TV, the yellow and orange slanted roofs of Ipanema segue black swans in a pond easily. The woman thinks, I have a name. I have never seen a black swan. The red velvet of red velvet cake makes the woman feel as though she eats Botticelli's Madonna adoring the child with 5 angels. There is no man, she thinks. There is no man, there is no man, there is no man, there is no woman in my bed, and she should say, I'm all right, but she isn't. The red velvet makes the woman feel as though she's eating Botticelli's Madonna and Child with an Angel, or Caravaggio's Sacrifice of Isaac, or Caravaggio's John the Baptist in the Desert. The woman eats Caravaggio everything. She takes her lazy robe inside. She takes her slippers, which are slippers, inside. Red velvet steeps the red of Baroque, an ordinary thing, the woman mumbles, though the woman she dreams cannot hear her. Throughout this book, Paul Robeson and Gertrude Steiner and company, with a lot of public figures. When I was a kid, I used to watch television all the time, trying to figure out exactly what blackness was, right? This is Bill Cosby, this Pearl Bailey. There's a performance of blackness, and I kept thinking I'm missing something. I'm apparently not getting it, right? So I would continually watch these figures and these characters on television to understand something that they seemed to know that I didn't about blackness. I was a kid, remember? So, but these women, Pearl Bailey and Eartha Kitt, were two women I remember seeing in old movies when I'd go visit my grandmother, and I used to think, I'm not going to be able to succeed when I grow up to be a black woman because I'm not as strong as them. I'm not as fierce as them. You see Eartha Kitt on the screen, and you're like, who has a chance? Who has a chance when this is the paradigm of black womanhood? Smart and intelligent and sexy and seductive and sinister and angelic all at once. And it seemed like a lot to live up to. Skit. Pearl Bailey and Eartha Kitt revise observations on the feeling of the beautiful. Whether we love it or hate it is irrelevant to its worth. We have heard more women call women whores than we have heard men call women whores. We have more light than we know what to do with. Live with it. Some time ago, a woman asked us for 5 women we loved and 5 women we hated and 5 women we hated to love. Or maybe 5 women we hated and 5 women we loved and 5 women we love to hate. Or both. We haven't been able to answer. We're trying not to sing too easy green and violet veins, meaning moth-winged flower, or would it be worse to say bloom? The shackled hardwood, the ribs of the house, the ribs of a huge beast, the ribs of a fossil, the ribs of a thing destined to be stone. We call ourselves away. Stranded is a place, not a thing. The oleos in the book, I was talking a little bit about this earlier at the Q&A, but the oleos in the book are kind of an interruption or an intermission that happens in front of the curtain. And so a lot of times they take a different turn. They step away from Lacey and they step away from the woman. And sometimes they are really just meant to be songs. This is one that is kind of a multi-vocal song, Oleo 44. She's the queen of neo-soul. Slow it down. Hey, suddenly I'm standing. What do you want from me? You make me want to leave. Look, it's not about music. There were 3 young orphans, 4. But about that, make it disappear. The truth will vanish with them. The truth has your word. The truth is almost. Hey, don't be so dramatic. They make fortunes building bombs. The Stone Age is before us. Get out of here. Go on. The story won't get out. It's not about music. It's not about making something that makes something else. She snaps her fingers, but the earth quakes. She ahs, but he still came home. She sways a sway we don't know how to name. When you want your horizon to work, you'll celebrate it first. There were 4 orphans, but you don't remember their names. Suddenly, they're gone. You don't have to pay a cent. Put that money in your pocket. She sings for free. She knows that truth is ancient and extinct. She knows there are things that can change you forever. They were not orphans. They were not a church. The canyon is in her belly and full of C notes. The canyon is an assailant. The story won't get out. The truth refuses to name a source. Slow it down. No one talks about the truth anymore. Suddenly, you're standing. Goodbye. Don't come back. 25. This is the poem I'm always afraid of my students asking me. You know, when a student says, who is somebody earlier today say, who is Lacey? Is that person here? Who is Lacey? Sometimes I want to say me, but I also don't want to say, no, that was not me, who had a BDSM slave collar, boxed, shipped, delivered to Lacey's door. Now, I just have to tell you the backstory about this. This is a true moment in the story. When I was doing a lot of the research for Dominant Unblued, which is this kind of exploration of the notions of slavery and empire, I would go online and I would look at things, but at the same time, I was very, 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 very stressed in my life. And I have been known to have parasomnia. Parasomnia is some activity that happens in your sleep. It could be sleep talking, it could be sleepwalking. Some people get in cars and drive them. At this particular time in my life, and this is a thing, I swear, Google it, I started sleep shopping. I did. It's like something happens where you're on the computer late at night and you're working and it's late and then all of a sudden it's like blackout, but you're still going automatic pilot. I got a great pair of Frye boots this way. I had a boyfriend who had come to visit me for the weekend from out of town, and while he was at my apartment, a bouquet of flowers showed up. And I said, thanks, and he said, I didn't get those. And I had to look it up online. I had ordered them for myself at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I just wanted to give you a little background so you understood that. So somehow, in the midst of doing my research, I ended up with this, BDSM slave collar that could pass for vanilla jewelry. Skip. She looks at parasomnia but thinks middle passage. The evening first waves and shackles, smells of rotting wood, skin, shit, sea stink, 1-800 numbers, miracle juicers, flowers and long boxes, a BDSM slave collar that can pass for vanilla jewelry, bought, box, shipped, delivered to Lacey's door. A waking dream about captivity, sleep shopping, anybody's guess. Later, she will explain that the moon is cliché. The moon is groggy gray and nothing else. Not a slave ship, nor 133 bodies caught in the rapture of enormous, deep, pervasive, blood-red drowning in a Turner painting. The moon is a paradigm for sublime disposal, or Baldwin hissing rope, fire, torture. Who do we think we are? The moon is a map. Do not close your eyes. Lacey doesn't. Do not close your eyes. Lacey cannot be anything but awake. A student struggles against the first 18 years of her life. Her hand reaches highest. Olio 65. A pink sweater, not dark but light, almost not pink. Her tongue a flower, which he says isn't pink because no pink exists in nature, but we brought him pink. Pink everywhere, in beer bottles and milk containers, in our hands and bunches everywhere, which made him love us and hate us as we loved him and hated him, whose tongue was not pink in the way you imagine, but in the way red fades from being red, although red is not part of this story. Because red turns away from pink as a brother turns away from another brother when a woman is involved. And her pink sweater pushes each to think pink nipple, pink lip, pink flower in the way Boethius thought pink flower, thinking woman, thinking man, not thinking to keep the allegorical away. because the allegorical does not tolerate pink, which is soft and weak, because it is nature and it's failing, because a girl sparkles from her feet to her head in pink backpack, scarf, gloves, because she is too young to understand how pink hates a woman, because she is too young to know how pink hates a man. Skit. Sun Ra welcomes the fallen. Jupiter means anger. Sun Ra does not. Sun Ra dances the cakewalk on Saturn's pulpy eyes. If you believe that, I'll tell you another one. First is 13 and the next is 20. They were not good boys, but they were boys. They were boys who died for this thing or that. The next was 16 and the last was 18. One had a cell phone, one had a gun. On Earth, a goose opens its chest to a sound. The goose takes the bullet this way, a sacrifice denied to the wind, since there is no such thing as sacrifice anymore, having succumbed to fever and the millennium. The bullet is all consequence. Sun Ra refuses red, long and high, low and deep. His arms are long enough to embrace them. Did anyone else want to be Lieutenant Uhura? She was one of those women that I would watch, and I would think I'm never going to succeed. I can't fill those shoes, right? I don't have it in me. She was, to me, the pinnacle of black womanhood, because she wasn't just there in her, red mini dress, owning the deck, but she was literally in the future, right? It was the first time I ever saw a black body in the future. As a kid, you just thought they got rid of all of us, apparently, right? There are no black bodies in the future, but then here comes Lieutenant Uhura, and there's hope for us. MLK Jr. and Lieutenant Uhuru have coffee and cake. Uhuru's cat eyes extend nearly to her temples. Each sweep of lid makes small gusts through the diner, so the short waitress with the mod green nails and Nancy Sinatra hair spends much of the morning closing, then reclosing the swinging steel frame door. Uhuru lowers her eyes to her cup, raises her hand, removes a dove from her mouth. The dove says, dystopia, brute, home. The dove says, domain. The dove says, grace means to do so. She raises her hand, puts the dove back in her mouth, raises her eyes to meet the eyes swelling in front of her. Martin looks over her red uniformed shoulder. He looks through the window just past the white Cadillac hood over the mint green roof of the Lorraine Hotel. The trees bud, ripen, and fail in the course of 2, perhaps 3 stoplight revolutions. In space, Martin says, in an oratory whisper as the waitress refills his coffee, brings Uhura's side of cream. In space, we need someone to plant orchards. He squeezes her hand as the sun angles her curves away, leans into his own breath. Someone, he says, and I trust you. Skit. Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey walk their dogs. They sniff the electric air. They pant in their paths. They are not devils than they are. They are foreigners and then they are not. They stop and see the bush, the leaves, the bird. They pull at the leash. The bird flies left and their heads turn. They are mammies. They are silver foxes. They are obvious. They are white devils. They kill and are being killed. They are black-faced. They are bitches. They are bulls. They are horses and now they're not. They're hunting. They're born and bred. They leave and then they return. They shoot. They burn bodies tied to trees. They laugh. They bark at the moon. They adjust their ties. They fasten up signs. They smell their own asses. They buck against the leash. They are coons. They bite. They whimper in corners. They plot. They burn lawns. They run fields and the redwings fly away. They jump trees and the squirrels run away. They measure numbers. They count by tens. They bite through bone. They write down names. They chase death in the day. They chase death in the night. They're waiting. They swim in lakes and run down birds. They pant their noses to the ground. They dig. They knock on doors in the middle of the night. They call the police. They run for joy, it seems. They run for their lives, it seems. They are happy with air and eating. They are happy neither now nor ever. They write letters to senators. They speak in tongues. They are wary of strangers. Bird. They pause at a scent. They wait. They make long speeches, and now they don't. They stand guard, and now they don't. They are quiet. They are thirsty. They can't smell upwind. They don't see it coming. And I have just two more for you. No Saints, One Act. This came up in conversation a little earlier, too. And that title, No Saints, One Act, is a nod to Gertrude Stein's opera. No Saints, One Act. You're waiting for the end gag. You're talking to the newsstand guy who's really looking at your breasts, which he'll call tits when he talks to the next guy. And the gum you want is gone. The case behind the prologue, which is the counter of which he's oblivious. He's on your tits. The woman next to you is safe in sweats, obscured made boy in her hips and chest with those long lines of velour, and so he doesn't notice her, though you're thinking parode, and do not say so when she leans in front of you, puts down her drink, puts down her chips, put down what must be put down. Could she love a cat? And his gum chewing and the register beeping, still your gum on the other side of the counter, still wrapped. None of this is beautiful or steeped in the freedom narrative you know it should have, that which lends itself to everything. If the voice in your head would simply say, whisper, say, potato sack. Don't speak. Don't speak. None of this can fill a chicken coop or make milk for the hungry. If there were a voice you answered inside your head, she would ask, bathing? The porter looks at you, but sweatsuit speaks to him. Hair swings round the shoulder, what you call the way white girls do it. Horse mane and pretty and shake, even the foot hooved, maybe also a shake of the neck and the finger without a ring, which then you lament, her lament of not having. Who loves her? Which is obvious. None of this apologizes for men hanging from trees, or Lewis Allen, or Jimmy Lee Jackson, who no one remembers, like Emmett Till before Emmett Till was remembered. And right there you should think, Heidegger. Can she love the sour smell of sex? Why, neither he nor she could know fascists, but then what? A gone, looking for sunshine, spitshine, moonshine. If there were a voice in your head besides your own, she would say, air tank. She would say, you are drowning. The pink sweatsuit has print across her ass, as all the pink sweated sweatsuits seem to have lately, as though each ass were an orange or a peach, which your chest is not neither written nor sweatsuited, and at which could she love a violet which won't bloom? The register man still stares like ownership is invisible, not unlike the spouse she doesn't have or hides having or has lost, whether she still looks for a body or not, and whether or not she knows that Parabasis means she is a comedy, or that epilogue in her hands feels like tragedy also. None of this appreciates rows of soybean. The voice of the woman you cannot imagine not in your head would say, razor. She would say, you are dull. None of this accounts for all of the people who you will never know because fields had to be and the houses had to be, and the profits of strangers suddenly means you cannot console her. You cannot say you lost something too. You cannot agree with her that the man at the register is a wise ass wearing Tommy Hilfiger cologne that you can buy at Walmart anyway. None of this would grow if you watered it. If you spoke to the voice in your head, you could finally understand, but would discover a different language. The porter walks closer, almost bumps you with his cart to let you know he's noticed, and so doesn't notice. Distract everyone who is not speaking. Fan your face. Unbutton one button and fan your neck. None of this can be eaten by the truly hungry. The porter imagines, uppity bitch, big tits. But the newsstand guy also, how he loves the exode of fluorescent light, how it makes him gut strong, keeps the counter in front of him. Love that woman if you can, but her shoulder bag is too heavy. Love that woman if you can, but her hands are too empty. You end up talking to the chorus, which is the newsstand guy, who you realize just now has nowhere to go. And this last poem is called When You Say Grotesque, because no one ever recovers from Winesburg, Ohio, right? It changes you. It changes you. When you say grotesque, you are the woman who understands you dream the life of another woman who shuffles inside your head, who imagines the window swallows everything. You can laugh about this. Windows are greedy. The reflection of trucks belongs to them. When you say grotesque, do you mean grotesque like in Ohio? Dresses mean women busy with everyone's business. There is no sex. There's no touching. There is no one to sit back rubbing his chin saying, ah, grotesque. If you smirk, you know you can laugh again. So every character trapped, named in the mind that imagines them. Are those blue curlers in your hair? Orange is a brave color. Can you brave orange? Can you brave orange with gray slate? Can orange be introduced to itself? See how orange ends up breathless, how it dies. When the light changes, they go away, and here you should ask, if you're paying attention, who they might be. Your mind assures you that you cannot leave. There's one more scene. The mind doesn't know who they might be. The mind imagines recycled paper, the aluminum cylinder thing with a red handle someone cranks to sift flour, and you didn't want to sift flour then, but you want to sift flour now. The grotesque has no graffiti, because graffiti is beautiful. You should not say beautiful. No one imagines swimming pools as television screens. Eventually, sales at H&M don't exist either. That woman who wonders about everything, milk, traffic, frozen food. You are that woman who wonders whether to make eye contact or not when someone passes by. Someone who you do not know. The grotesque is not which is where you live. The notion that everything is all right, like The couch receives you from the outside where each street was unfortunately out in the world. The notion is grotesque. Men are not imagined. The face gone wrong, you'd like to believe, but you're wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Insert someone else's face here. Where is the woman who merengues in Rio de Janeiro, who makes neither lilies nor wheat nor thunderbirds nor drive-ins in her head because she forgets the life in her head? Her sequins forget their black glint without effort. Here is the woman who insists her dream is someone. Thank you.